Ahead and call. Sorry, thank you for that. Let's call the case of United States versus Cara Bassett. My name is Judge Bellido de Luna. You could call me Your Honor, Judge. You can call me Bellido de Luna. That's my last name if you want, but I know it's really hard. So Judge, Your Honor, either one of those will work. Scoring judges, please look to the two buttons on the lower left-hand corner of your screen and make sure that your audio and video are turned off. It seems that's the case right now. You should remain off until the trial ends, and you should also have your video set to hide all non-video participants. This means the only people on the screen right now should be the advocates and me. And with that, can the advocates please make their appearances? Start with the government.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the jury and opposing counsel. My name is Tyler Chin-Lenn on behalf of the United States. I'm joined today by my co-counsel, Ms. Ariana Medina, who will be assisting me in the technological aspects of today's trial.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chin-Lenn and Ms. Medina. For the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Connor Wright, and today I represent the defense in this case. I'm joined today by my co-counsel, Ethan Wright. He will be handling all the technological difficulties that we may occur, and he will be timing for both sides as well. I'm also here today with my witness, Joe Young.
Okay, Matthew, you wrote a message to everybody. Is that just now or when we came on?
Yes, Your Honor. I was just reminding everyone for speaker
Right
during the speeches and gallery for everything else.
Okay, very good. Well, good morning, Mr. Wright. And is Ethan Wright related to you in any way?
He is related to me, Your Honor. He is my cousin.
Fantastic. Well, to Mr. and Mr. Wright, welcome to my courtroom. It's the first time you guys have all been in front of me. Do you have any preliminary matters before we get started?
Yes, Your Honor, we have some housekeeping matters to attend to.
Very well, let's do those now.
Your Honor, on behalf of the United States, we ask that all witnesses are constructively sequestered during today's trial pursuant to Rule 615.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Wright?
Yes, Your Honor, that is absolutely okay with us.
All right, all of the witnesses have been constructively sworn in.
Finally, Your Honor.
You wanted them sequestered as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Under 615, yeah, okay, they're constructively sequestered to the extent that they can be.
Finally, Your Honor, we would like to direct the court's attention to Pretrial Order 7, which states that Exhibits 4 through 33 are pre-admitted and can be used at any time during today's trial.
That is correct. 4 through 33 are pre-admitted and can be used at any time. You do not need to ask permission to publish. You may publish at will 4 through 33 since they're already admitted.
With that, Your Honor, the United States is ready to proceed.
All right, very well. And for the defense?
The defense is ready as well, Your Honor.
Okay, well then at this time, we're going to hear opening statements from each party. And for the judges, the scoring judges that are out there, you should be in speaker view now. And that button is on the upper right hand of your screen. Attorneys, please remember to mute your audio when the other attorney is speaking. We will hear first from the government.
May it please the court, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, data doesn't lie. Data is consistent, data is precise, and as you will see, unlike everything else in Cara Bassett's life, data cannot be manipulated or controlled. You'll see in her life, it was always Cara Bassett's way. You'll see she got her TV show, she got her money, she got her animals, she got everything. But when somebody told her no, when her husband told her no, you will hear she made sure she was never told no again. On the night of August 18th of 2017, Don Clark went to sleep, but he didn't know. He didn't know that his wife would inject him with carfentanil, killing him, throw him across a wheelchair and into the depths of Big Gum Swamp, where he would never reemerge. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today the government bears the burden of proof. We have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Miss Bassett murdered her husband, Don Clark, with malicious afterthought. And you will see we will meet that burden today because data doesn't lie and documents do not lie. Today you will hear from Senior Agent Steph Branham, an FBI agent with over 18 years of experience at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who took on the role as lead investigator during the searches of the Elephant Park, the airport, and Big Gum Swamp. Senior Agent Branham will testify today that Cara Bassett knew the dangers associated with carfentanil as early as November 1st of 2016. You will hear because of this, she started to plan. You will hear that she planned for 290 days. Senior Agent Brandon will also walk you through the FBI forensics team's report. And you will see that the algae that was found on Miss Bassett's boots, down to microscopic phytoplankton and the atomic structure of the algae, matches the algae found on the wheelchair, which matches the algae found at the airport, which all match the algae found at Big Gum Swamp. We'll see from Agent Branham's testimony that the FBI forensics team's data aligns perfectly with the event data recorder's GPS data and Don Clark's van. And you'll see that this shows us Miss Bassett's execution of her plan. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will notice in today's trial that data doesn't lie. You will also hear today from Miss Young, who explained the animosity and strife in the relationship between Kara and Don Clark, who had multiple fights about the future of the elephant park. Fights that got so bad, you will see Kara Bassett force Miss Young to delete all of the footage of the fighting. Miss Young will also tell you that Kara's wish was to turn the elephant park into an elephant sanctuary. She will then explain that Kara was only able to accomplish her life goal when Don Clark was out of the picture, and only when she had access to the power of attorney. A power of attorney that, as you will see today, included a never-before-seen clause, intentionally controlled and added by Kara Bassett, that gave her all of the assets if Don simply disappeared. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, documents do not lie. Do not let Don Clark become just another statistic in your daily newspaper obituary. You'll see Don Clark had a life. But that life, as you will see in the countless documents, the power of attorney, the precise data from the forensics reports, was taken away by Kara Bassett. We ask that you give justice to the family of Don Clark, and at the end of today's trial, find Kara Bassett guilty of murder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chin-Lenn, and for the defense. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Wright.
Yes, Your Honor. The government's case cuts corners. It's August 18th, 2017. Don Clark has just received a text message from his business partner in Costa Rica. This is it. Don has been working on this business deal for months. It's finally happening. Don, he says, I gotta take this. And he walks away, dialing a phone number in Costa Rica. His business partner answers and they start working out the final details. But Don's scared. Can he really do this? Walk away from everyone without saying anything? 11:14 p.m., Don texts his wife, going out for a while. He smiles as he jumps in his van and he leaves the elephant park for the last time. Members of the jury, today it's the government that holds the burden of proof, beyond a reasonable doubt. What that means is that if at the end of today's trial, there is a reasonable alternative to what they claim happened to Don Clark, you cannot find Mrs. Bassett guilty. Today we'll be calling a film producer by the name of Joe Young. Miss Young is going to take the stand and she's going to tell you. She was at the elephant park every day, filming everything. Filming Don, filming Cara, filming the elephants, the guests, the staff, everything. 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, from 2015 to 2018. She's going to tell you that she saw Don and Cara, and she got pretty familiar with them. She'll tell you that Don Clark was all business. He didn't care about elephants. His true love was Costa Rica, and he would go there as often as he could. Today you're going to learn that Miss Young accumulated 2,000 hours of footage in her time at the park. And the FBI, they never even bothered to look at it. Between Miss Young and the testimony you'll hear on the cross of Agent Branham, it'll be clear that the government cut corners in their investigation. In fact, when the government was up here just a minute ago, I wrote it down, they said that they found microscopic phytoplankton on the algae. You're going to learn that that algae It was never tested with water and algae at the elephant park. They have no idea if algae at the elephant park is the same algae that they're resting their case on today. They certainly didn't tell you about the off-the-books money that Don Clark had and wanted to use to purchase properties in Costa Rica. Today, you're going to learn the government cut corners in their investigation. It'll be clear to you at the end of today's trial that there are plenty of reasonable alternatives to what the government says happened in this case. And I'm going to ask you to find Kara Bassett not guilty. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wright. All right, before we call our first witness, I'll ask everyone to switch to gallery view. And that button is in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. And this will allow you to see the attorneys and the witnesses at the same time. With that, Mr. Chin-Lenn, do you wish to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the United States calls Senior Agent Steph Branham to the stand.
All right, Agent Branham, your witness.
Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury, Agent Branham?
Good morning. My name is Steph Branham, and I'm a senior special agent for the FBI.
And Special Agent Branham, how long have you worked for the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
By this point, I've been working for the FBI for the greater part of 2 decades.
And what specific capacity do you serve in at the Federal Bureau?
Well, I work in the Violent Crimes Unit of the Criminal Investigations Division. So I investigate murders, kidnappings, and other violent crimes.
And what role did you serve into the investigation of the disappearance of Don Clark?
I was actually the senior investigator in that case.
And Agent Branham, how did you begin that investigation into the disappearance of Don Clark?
Well, we started by examining Don Clark's residence. At the time of his disappearance, Mr. Don Clark both lived at and worked at an elephant zoo called the Greater Tallahassee Elephant Park. We started by scouring the property for any physical evidence we could find.
When you were searching that elephant park, what did you notice?
Well, we noticed that there was no blood, no signs of violence, no broken windows, anything like that.
And using your experience in the field, can you explain to the jury the significance of the absence of blood and the signs of violence in this case?
Yes, sir. The absence of blood or signs of violence indicates to us that Don Clark's disappearance wasn't a suicide or a death by accident or by natural causes. In those cases, we would have found some sort of remains of Don Clark, blood, a broken glass, something like that.
And Agent Branham, did you find anything of value on the park property besides the lack of violence?
Yes, when we investigated the park, we found a case of syringes, and those syringes were filled with the chemical carfentanil.
Would you be able to recognize for the jury the effects of carfentanil on a human being?
Yes, I'm familiar with the substance.
Ms. Medina, can you please put up Exhibit 17 on the screen for us? Agent Branham, what can the drug carfentanil do to a human being?
Well, carfentanil is an extremely lethal substance. Just 1 milligram can cause death to a human adult.
Agent Branham, did the FBI figure out how the drug carfentanil got onto the property?
Yes, we found that it was ordered as a tranquilizer for the elephants on the park.
Ms. Medina, can you please put up Exhibit 16 on the screen for us? Agent Branham, can you please read the name of who the carfentanil was billed to?
Yes, sir. The carfentanil was billed to Kara Clark, which was Kara Bassett's name at the time.
And who was it shipped to, Agent Branham?
Shipped to the same person, Kara Clark.
Ms. Medina, can you please focus in on the note at the bottom of the receipt for us? Agent Branham, can you please read the note at the bottom of Ms. Bassett's receipt?
Yes, sir. It says, carfentanil is a Schedule II controlled substance regulated by the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Be advised of the danger of addiction, physical harm, mental harm, and other serious risks resulting from the improper use of this substance.
And what does this note that's at the bottom of this page reveal to you as an FBI investigator?
Well, it indicates to me that Ms. Kara Bassett was informed of the dangers of carfentanil and that it was a potentially lethal substance.
Now, Agent Branham, how many vials of that carfentanil did you find on the property?
When we investigated the case of syringes, we found 23.
And was this 23 expected? Did you expect to find 23 syringes?
No, the Elephant Park, according to law, had to keep a logbook that recorded all the uses of the syringes. According to that logbook, there should have been 24 syringes, so one syringe was missing.
And who was the last person that signed out a vial of carfentanil?
According to the logbook, Kara Bassett was the last person to access the carfentanil.
Now, Agent Branham, after you searched the Elephant Park, how did you continue your investigation?
After searching the Elephant Park, we investigated the nearby Cary Bell Leon Airport, where Don Clark had a private plane.
And what did you find at the Cary Bell Leon Airport?
We actually found one of Don Clark's vehicles, a van that he normally kept at the Elephant Park.
And after you searched the van for those physical objects, like you mentioned, what else did you find inside of that car?
We found fingerprints inside of the car on the steering wheel that identified previous drivers as Don Clark, an employee at the park, Kelsey Stebbins, and Miss Kara Bassett.
Now, did you find anything else inside of the van?
Yes, we found traces of mud and algae on the driver's side pedals.
And let's talk about that algae for a second. Did you find that algae anywhere else during your investigation?
Yes, after running forensic analysis, we found the exact same algae on Kara Bassett's work boots, as well as on a wheelchair that we found at the park.
And how did you know that that algae was exactly the same?
Well, using forensic analysis techniques, we use what's called the Redfield ratio. Every location has what we like to think of as a locational fingerprint. It's unique, one of a kind, and it's related to the atomic structure of the fauna and flora in the area. Those fauna and flora algae fingerprints matched from the boots to the van to the wheelchair, so we know that all three were involved in the same location.
Now, Agent Branham, how did you know that that algae was similar?
Well, we ran an analysis on the algae, and we looked at the atomic structure of the algae, and it had the exact same Redfield ratio, which indicates that those three substances were from the exact same place.
Agent Branham, did you find anything else in that vehicle?
Yes, we found some hair in the back of the vehicle that we identified as being Don Clark's.
And how do you know Miss Bassett was at the swamp?
Looking at the GPS records for that van, we saw that the van was driven to Big Gum Swamp on August 18th of 2017.
And was there anything else in particular about those GPS records that stood out to you?
Well, on the night of Don Clark's disappearance, the van indicates that it left the Elephant Park at 11 p.m. and drove 2 hours away to a swamp with the same exact algae that we found on Kara Bassett's boots.
Senior Agent Branham, how did you know Miss Bassett was at those places you just mentioned?
Well, the algae and the mud on her boots had the exact same Redfield ratio, the exact same atomic structure of the algae on her boots and the wheelchair as the algae on the van and at the swamp. So that indicates that Kara Bassett was at the swamp, and the GPS records indicate that that occurred on August 18th of 2017.
Now, Senior Agent Branham, did you conduct any interviews during your investigation?
Yes, we interviewed pretty much everyone who knew Don Clark or was around Don Clark. We interviewed his children. We interviewed employees at the elephant zoo that he ran. We interviewed employees at the airport where he kept a private plane, and we interviewed his wife, Kara Bassett.
And how tall was Don Clark, Senior Agent Branham?
According to our records, Don Clark was 6 feet and 5 inches at the time of his disappearance.
And how tall was Kara Bassett, Agent Branham?
She was 5'4".
And what does that reveal to you, Agent Branham?
Well, that indicates that the only person who could have worn the boots that we found algae on was Kara Bassett.
No further questions.
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation.
All right, hang on, Mr. Chin-Lenn. Mr. Wright, you have an objection?
Yes, Your Honor, is to lack of foundation.
Can you repeat that last question, Mr. Chin-Lenn?
I asked, what does the height of the two people reveal to you, Senior Agent Branham?
And your objection, Mr. Wright, is that Mr. Agent Branham does not have the knowledge? Is that what it is?
Well, there's just a lack of foundation on the record as to what shoe size that Miss Bassett was. He testified that for a fact, Don Clark would not be able to fit in the same shoes as Kara Bassett. There's just a lack of foundation.
All right, I'll sustain that. And Mr. Chin-Lenn, I'll give you an opportunity to clean that up.
We have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
You don't want to clean that up?
We'll save it for redirect, Your Honor. We're saving time.
Okay, I understand. All right, so that objection is therefore sustained. And the government is sitting on a sustained objection. Mr. Wright, you may proceed with cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Agent.
Good morning.
I want to talk about your search for Don Clark. You started looking for Don Clark at the Elephant Park, like you said on direct.
Right. The first step of any missing persons case is to look at the property where the person resided and see if we could find any physical evidence.
You then moved on to the Big Gum Swamp. Isn't that true?
Well, after looking at Don's residence at the Elephant Zoo, we actually went to Carey-Belleon Airport, where Don had a private plane. That's where we found the van that was driven to Big Gum Swamp on the night that Don disappeared.
Okay, so you went to the airport and then you went to the swamp, right?
That's correct.
Now, you couldn't find a body anywhere, could you?
Well, Big Gum Swamp is a 13,000 acre swamp full of bacteria, fungi. It's really impossible for our dogs to track scent in there. So it really was the perfect place for Carabasset to have disposed of.
Hold on a second, Agent. Hold on a second. You said that it is impossible for the dogs to be able to track that scent. You didn't include that in your report, did you?
Sir, I included in my report that we gave our dogs a scent of Don Clark and that they weren't able to find him.
Well, we'll get to that in a second, but you never included in your report that it was impossible to find Don Clark with those trained dogs. You never included that in your report, did you?
Sir, we took every measure we could to give the dogs a scent and give them the opportunity to find Don Clark. But due to the extreme conditions of the swamp, it's 13,000 acres full of bacteria, fungus, decay. They were not able to find Don Clark.
So redirecting you back to my question, you searched the Big Gum Swamp with trained dogs, but you never included that in your report, that it was impossible because of fungi and bacteria. Isn't that true?
Sir, I believe this is an issue of semantics. We did what we could with the dogs and we weren't able to find Don Clark.
And nowhere in your report did you say it was impossible to find his body?
We
Your
said
Honor,
that.
this has been asked and answered.
No, it hasn't, and I'm going to direct the witness to answer yes or no. Stop
Yes, Your Honor.
fighting him. He's asking you a yes or a no question.
Not those exact words, sir.
Okay. So you couldn't find a body anywhere.
Well, this is not an uncommon scenario in missing persons cases. We found evidence to show where the body is, but again, due to the extreme circumstances of Big Gum Swamp, we weren't able to recover the body.
So that's a yes.
Yes, we don't have the body because it's in the swamp.
And you look for signs of struggle, right?
At the property, the Greater Tallahassee Elephant Park, we looked for signs of struggle. We couldn't find any, no blood, so that indicates that it wasn't a suicide or a death by natural causes or accident.
Now, when you were at that swamp, you couldn't find any wheelchair tread patterns on the ground, could you?
Sir, it's a 13,000 acre swamp, and the case, Don's disappearance, wasn't reported until a week after he disappeared.
Is that a yes to my question?
Fine.
I'm going to stop the time for a minute. Agent Branham, this
Yes,
is a
sir.
timed event. He is asking you yes or no questions. I do not like advocate witnesses. If you need additional time, Mr. Chin-Lenn can ask you to clarify on his time. But
Yes,
you are
sir.
not to go beyond the question. If you cannot answer yes or no, state you cannot answer yes or no. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
You can restart the clock. Mr. Wright, your witness.
Yes, Your Honor. You couldn't find any physical evidence at the swamp indicating that Don Clark was there either.
No, sir.
It's been almost 3 years now, and that park is open recreationally 24/7.
Which park, sir?
Sorry, the Big Gum Swamp is open 24/7 recreationally, right?
The swamp is, yes.
And no one has reported seeing a body. Isn't that true?
No, sir.
So let's talk about what you actually did find. Mr. Wright, could you get Exhibit 21 on the screen for us? Now, this is a record of the phone calls from Don Clark's phone, right?
Yes, sir. Those look like a copy of his phone records.
If you look at the last phone call on August 18th, the day he disappeared, that call is from an unlisted phone number.
That call is outgoing from Don Clark to an unlisted phone number, yes.
He also received text messages from an unlisted phone number, right?
That's what the phone records indicate.
The phone records indicate that both of these, or all three of these rather, are from Costa Rica. Isn't that true?
That's correct. It's my understanding that Don Clark had business associates there.
You have no transcript of this phone call, right?
We weren't able to get a transcript from MT Mobile.
No way of obtaining any information from the phone call other than that it lasted for 52 minutes. Isn't that true?
We did what we could, sir, but we couldn't find any evidence as to the content of the phone call.
And you never investigated this caller, did you?
We did our best to investigate the caller, sir, but in the end, we weren't able to find the identity of the caller.
You have no idea who's contacting Don Clark just hours before he disappears. Isn't that true?
I believe I answered that question, sir. We investigated to see if we could find the person's identity, but were unsuccessful.
Let's talk about some individuals you didn't target in your investigation. Now, there were 2 park employees that could not provide you with alibis for the time period that Clark went missing.
Sir, they didn't have motives to kill Don Clark, so we didn't include them as suspects, but yes, we didn't have alibis for them.
So that's a yes.
That's correct.
One of those individuals was Saba Grandi,
Yes,
and the other was Nate Garson.
that's correct. And again, they don't have motives to kill Don Clark.
Well, let's talk about Lisa Clark, Don's ex-wife. Now, you investigated Lisa Clark, didn't you?
Yes, it's our understanding.
Your Honor, this is beyond the scope of direct. Cross is limited to direct and credibility, and this does not go at all to credibility, Your Honor.
Is that correct, Mr. Wright? The crosses are limited in this jurisdiction?
No, Your Honor, no rule states that crosses are limited to direct. If that was the case, they could only ask a few questions and I wouldn't have anything to cross.
Your Honor, may I respond? There's a federal rule of evidence.
I understand the federal rule of evidence, Mr. Chin-Lenn, but Mr. Wright doesn't have an opportunity to recall this witness on his own. So therefore, I'm going to overrule that objection. However, you can make a secondary objection based on my response.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you know the secondary objection?
Your Honor, at this time, we have no further objections from the government.
Very well, Mr. Wright, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. When you called Lisa Clark on the phone, she told you that Don Clark deserved to die. Isn't that true?
Objection, Your Honor. This is hearsay.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
All right. Yes, sir.
We're not offering this for the truth of the matter asserted that Don Clark actually deserved to die. We don't believe that's true, Your Honor. We're offering this for the lack of effect on Agent Branham's investigation.
Response, Mr. Chin-Lenn?
Your Honor, this is still an out-of-court statement that was not made in a judicial setting and thus is hearsay.
But it's not being offered for the truth.
Your Honor, it is offered for the truth because they're offering a different alternative to the set of fact patterns that Agent Branham previously testified to.
I think this is really close, but this is the agent in charge. I'll allow it for the purpose that Mr. Wright said that it's for. If Mr. Wright does not use that, I will accept another objection from you, Mr. Chin-Lenn.
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm going to overrule that objection. Mr. Wright, may you proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. So, Agent, when you called Lisa Clark, she said that Don Clark deserved to die. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir, she made that statement. However, we found no evidence that Lisa Clark was involved with the murder.
Well, that wasn't my question. That's a yes to the question I asked you, right?
I said yes, sir.
She completely refused to participate in your investigation. Isn't that true?
She has a right to not participate if she doesn't want to, and she exercised that right.
So you don't even know if Lisa Clark has an alibi for the night of August 18th, do you?
We don't know her exact location on that night. That's correct.
I want to talk about some algae that you were mentioning on direct examination. Mr. Wright, could you get Exhibit 5 on the screen for us? Now, Agent, you're aware that Exhibit 5 is the forensics report that your team came up with, right?
That's correct. This is the forensic report that we ran.
It states that that algae found on my client's boots is highly likely coming from the Big Gum Swamp. True?
Yes, sir. We tested the atomic structure of the algae and they matched. So yes.
But what's uncertain about that is whether or not it came from the elephant park. Isn't that true?
Sir, like I said on direct, it's like a locational fingerprint. That would be highly, highly unlikely. But no, we didn't check that.
You didn't test the elephant park, did you?
As I said, no, because that's not how forensic testing works, sir.
Well, that's a yes to my question.
I said yes, sir.
Thank you, Agent. Nothing further.
Redirect, Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Chin-Lenn.
Senior Agent Branham, did you have to test based on scientific data? Did you have to test the elephant park?
No, sir. The way that forensic analysis of algae works is that algae from a certain location have a very specific atomic structure. And we tested the algae from the van, from Miss Bassett's boots, from the wheelchair, and it matched exactly the red field ratio we found at Big Gum Swamp. That's like a fingerprint. And so yes, we are confident that those samples came from the swamp.
Objection, Your Honor. Expert witness testimony.
Permission to respond, Your Honor.
Hang on, let me hear from Mr. Wright first.
Yes, Your Honor. This witness just testified that that algae is like a fingerprint. There's been no foundation laid as to how this witness would be aware of whether or not, or of that information, would be able to testify in court about the specifics of the algae in relation to things like fingerprints. We ask that foundation be established before they go on and talk about this information.
Mr.
May I
Chin-Lenn,
respond?
I'll hear from you now, yes.
Your Honor, foundation was laid. Senior Agent Branham has testified today that he was the lead investigator over all the searches of the park and does all the forensics teams. And then he created a report based off of that data.
All right, Mr. Wright, or Agent Branham had testified about the fingerprint analysis on direct examination on this very same issue. You did not object at that time. You could have talked about that during your cross. You did not. So I am, this is out of the park already. So I'm going to overrule your objection, Mr. Chin-Lenn.
Yes, Your
You
Honor.
may re-ask your question and allow Mr. or Agent to testify.
Yes, Your Honor. Senior Agent Branham, did you have to test the data at the elephant park?
No, sir, that's not how forensic analysis works. We tested the atomic structure of algae at Big Gum Swamp and on Carabasset's boots, and the atomic structure, the red field ratio, matched exactly.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, may Agent Branham sit down? I guess he can. All right, Mr. Chin-Lenn, do you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor. The government rests its case.
All right, with that, is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense is ready to proceed. May we call our witness?
Please do.
The defense calls Joe Young to the stand.
Sorry, it's Joe Young, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you have been sworn. Mr. Wright, your witness.
Good morning, Ms. Young.
Good morning.
Can you introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Hi, I'm Joe Young.
What do you do for a living, Ms. Young?
I make documentaries.
Are you familiar with my client, Cara Bassett?
Yes, I actually filmed a documentary about her.
What did you film?
Well, so she told me it was going to be called Elephant Queen, so I assumed it was going to be about elephants. But then I got to set, and it definitely wasn't about elephants.
What was it about?
It was about Cara Bassett.
Now, what was your arrangement with my client, Cara Bassett?
Well, I would come in 5 days a week, film from 8 to 6, and then I'd go home.
How long did that arrangement continue?
About 3 years. I started in 2015, ended in 2018.
So working with Cara Bassett for 5 days a week for 3 years, would you say you got to know her pretty well?
Yeah, I got to know her really well.
How familiar did you become with the elephant park?
Very familiar. I was filming it basically every day.
Were you familiar with her husband, Don Clark?
Yes, I was filming him as well.
Were you at the park on August 18th of 2017?
I was.
Can you tell the members of the jury if you witnessed any interaction between Cara Bassett and Don Clark that day?
I did. I overheard a phone call between Cara and her husband.
Did you hear any specifics?
Objection, Your Honor. Defense counsel is asking this witness to testify to a hearsay statement. It's an out-of-court statement. Needs to prove the truth of the matter asserted.
Your Honor,
The
may I-
question itself is a yes or no question. As long as she doesn't expand beyond the yes or no, I think we're okay. So I'm going to overrule that objection, but stay on the button, Mr. Chin-Lenn. Mr. Wright?
Ms. Young, could you tell the members of the jury if you heard any specifics about that conversation?
I heard something about Costa Rica.
Did you hear any specific statements from Cara Bassett?
Yes, I heard her say, I don't care if you go without.
Objection, Your Honor. This is a hearsay statement. It's an out-of-court statement. Needs to prove the truth of the matter asserted.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
Briefly?
We're offering this statement under 803.3 to show the state of mind of Cara Bassett, the declarant, on the day of August 18th.
Mr. Chin-Lenn, what do you say to that?
Your Honor, this is not the state of mind of the defendant. The state of mind of the state of mind exception to hearsay requires that a tragic event or a life-altering event occurs, and thus the state of mind can occur, the present sense impression.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
All right, go ahead.
First of all, this witness actually didn't get to finish the statement she was saying. She was saying that Kara Bassett on the phone with Don Clark said, "I don't care if you go without me." We're offering this for the state of mind that Kara Bassett was in a good place with her husband and was okay that he was going on his trip to Costa Rica without her.
Okay. It's really close. I'm gonna allow it under that. Mr. Wright,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
gonna overrule the objection.
Ms. Young, did you get a chance to finish the statement?
No, she said, I'm okay with you going without me.
Did you see Don Clark on August 18th, 2017?
Yeah, later that day I talked with him a bit. I
When did you talk to him?
think it was around 6 p.m.
I want to talk about your conversation, but before we do, Mr. Wright, could you put Exhibit 21 on the screen for us? Ms. Young, I want you to tell the members of the jury if you've seen this document before you came to court today.
I did. I was shown it in an interview.
Now, Mr. Clark, he received 2 text messages around 6 p.m. Do you see those listed on here?
I do.
Can you tell the members of the jury where those text messages were coming from?
It says they came from Costa Rica.
Now, Mr. Clark also made a phone call at around 6 p.m. Can you tell the members of the jury where that phone call was going to?
It says it was to Costa Rica.
Let's talk about your conversation at 6 p.m. on August 18th of 2017. What happened?
Well, I was just talking with him about the elephants, and then he got a text and told me he had to take it.
When did you learn that Mr. Clark went missing?
Well, I'd gone on a trip for about a week, and when I came back on August 26th, the whole park was filled with FBI, and that's when I learned he was missing.
When you saw that the whole park was filled with FBI, what specifically did you see them looking through?
Well, I saw them looking through all the elephant cages and the equipment shed.
You mentioned that equipment shed. Did you see anything specific about what the FBI was searching in the equipment shed?
They were handling some syringes. I remember it was a little weird because they weren't wearing gloves.
Ms. Young, to your knowledge, how many park employees had access to that shed?
Dozens.
Were you ever interviewed by someone named Agent Brennan?
He asked me a couple of questions, but he never sat me down for an interview.
Ms. Young, you told us that you've been working with Kara Bassett for 3 years, 5 days a week. How much footage did you accumulate during that time period?
Around 2,000 hours?
Did you show Agent Branham those 2,000 hours of footage?
No, he never asked for it.
You have 2,000 hours of footage. Who have you shown it to?
No one. No one's ever asked.
I want to talk about your relationship with Don Clark. Did you know him well?
I knew him pretty well. I was filming him most of the days.
Are you aware of where he liked to travel?
Yeah, he liked to travel to Costa Rica.
Are you aware of whether or not he had a home there?
He did.
Did you ever get to go to that home?
Yeah, about a year after he disappeared, my producers told me that I should go to Costa Rica and see if I could find him.
Well, when you went to his house in Costa Rica, what did you find?
Well, I found his clothes in the closet. There wasn't any dust, and the fans were on.
How long did you stay in Costa Rica?
About a week.
And did you talk to the locals there?
Yeah, I did. I asked them if they could find Mr. Clark.
When you asked them if they had seen Mr. Clark, what did they say?
They told me they had seen him.
Thank you, Miss Young. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, very well. Cross-examination?
Cross, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Joe Young, you talked to Mr. Wright about Costa Rica quite a bit on direct examination. Isn't it true you snuck into the property in Costa Rica?
Yes, my executives told me that would be good for camera.
And isn't it true when you went into that house, all of the lights on that property were off?
They were.
And isn't it true there were no drinks in the fridge?
There was nothing in the fridge.
There was no food in the fridge then?
No,
And you saw no toiletries in this house when you scoured it?
I didn't.
And isn't it true you were in Costa Rica for a week?
I was.
And isn't it true you never saw anyone leave the house?
No, I didn't.
And isn't it true you never saw anyone enter that house?
I didn't.
Now, you mentioned on direct you talked to some of the locals. Is that correct?
I did.
And you've testified that some of the locals recognized Don Clark. Is that correct?
And that's what they told me.
And however, they weren't able to tell you where they saw him, correct?
No, they couldn't.
They couldn't tell you what he was wearing, correct?
They couldn't.
And isn't it true you saw no blood stains inside of that house?
I definitely didn't see any bloodstains.
No signs of struggle?
No signs of struggle.
Now let's go talk about the elephant park now. Isn't it true the defendant, Kara Bassett, has paid you over $190,000 since 2017 to work for her?
She's paid that to me and my team. I send it out to all of the people who work with me, and we use it to film everything.
But that was your salary from Kara Bassett, correct?
That is my total salary, yes.
And during your employment at the park, isn't it true Kara had you mostly film her?
That's right.
And because of this, in 2017, Kara ordered you to erase all the footage that you filmed of her and Don fighting, correct?
She did ask me to delete that.
And isn't it true that the fight she asked you to delete was about the elephant park?
That's what the fight was about?
And just based on the footage you gathered, isn't it true that they fought because Kara wanted to transform it into a sanctuary?
That's what I heard.
Ms. Young, let's travel back now to your first meeting with Kara. In your first meeting with Kara in 2015, what did she say her goal was?
She said she wanted a sanctuary.
And isn't it true that she only accomplished this goal, her life goal, once Don disappeared?
That's when she turned it into a sanctuary?
So that's a yes, that she only accomplished her life goal when Don disappeared?
She turned it into a sanctuary after he disappeared, yes.
Let's switch from the protagonist of your TV show to the park itself. Isn't it true that at the park there was a shed that had all the medications in it, as you previously testified?
There was.
And isn't it true the elephant tranquilizer, carfentanil, was housed in there?
Yeah, that's where they kept it.
And isn't it true Kara Bassett had access to the tranquilizer?
As far as I knew.
And isn't it true Don Clark did not have access to the tranquilizer?
I never saw him.
And are you aware that one of the tranquilizers went missing, Joe Young?
I am aware of that.
And isn't it true you saw no one remove a tranquilizer from the property?
I never saw anyone take it out of the park.
So to the best of your knowledge, when you left on August 18th of 2017 at 6 p.m., all the tranquilizers were there, correct?
As far as I know, I didn't check it.
And when you left at August 18th at 2017 at 6 p.m., the only people left in the park were Kara and Don Clark, correct? To the best of your
Those were
knowledge?
the only people I saw.
And isn't it true then that Kara was the only one on the property when you left who had access to the tranquilizer?
I think so, yeah.
And isn't it true when you left you didn't see anyone enter the property?
I didn't see anyone.
It isn't true when you left you didn't see anyone leave the property?
That's right.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Wright, do you have a redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. May Miss Young please be excused?
All right, Ms. Young, you are excused. Any other witnesses, Mr. Wright?
No, Your Honor. With that, the defense rests.
All right, are both sides ready to go to closing arguments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. The United States is ready to proceed.
All right then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we will now hear closing arguments from each party. Everyone should please switch back to speaker view. Also, since both witnesses have completed their testimony, you can complete the witness portion of your ballot if you wish. All right, with that, Mr. Chin-Lenn, you may begin your closing argument.
Your Honor, the United States reserves any remaining time for rebuttal.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you witnessed today was a sad story. A story that no spouse, no significant other, no life partner ever wants to consider. But we had to tell this story because Don Clark was like all of us, driven by a desire for progressive change, a desire to save endangered species, and a desire for a successful business. Don Clark achieved the American dream, and Don Clark deserves justice. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today the government bore the burden of proof. We had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Kara Bassett murdered her husband, Don Clark, with malice aforethought. We had to prove that she had a plan and that she executed her plan. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we met that burden today because data doesn't lie, and neither do documents. They are simply facts. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you saw today that the facts are simple. Kara Bassett planned, and then Kara Bassett executed. And her plan began on November 1st of 2016 when she ordered the carfentanil. Because for the next 290 days, that order impacted every decision she made. For those next 290 days, she finally had her way towards control. She finally had her murder weapon because she knew that the carfentanil could cause physical harm and could cause death. So what did she do with this information? Did she warn her husband? Did she warn the park staff? Did she warn anyone who entered the park? No. She went and changed Don Clark's power of attorney. She forced Mandy Tuminelli, Don's attorney, to put in Don's power of attorney a never-before-seen disappearance trigger clause that would give her $8 million. But you heard from Kara Bassett's hand-picked producer, who was paid over $190,000, was Kara Bassett's life goal. She could only achieve her life goal if she had that $8 million. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that was her plan. She had the motive. Documents do not lie, and neither does data. The data is extremely clear. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's forensics team found that the algae composition on Miss Bassett's boots, down to the microscopic diatoms and phytoplankton, had the exact same Redfield ratio as the algae found on the wheelchair, inside the van, and at the swamp. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the Redfield ratio is the ratio of carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus atoms. It's the atomic structure inside of phytoplankton. It cannot be controlled. It cannot be manipulated. It's unique. It's a fingerprint. The ratio on the boots was 47-31-29. The ratio on the wheelchair was 47-31-29. The ratio inside of the van on the brakes was 47-31-29. The ratio at the swamp was 47-31-29. The fingerprints, the atomic structure match. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's not just the phytoplankton and the atomic structure of the algae that tells us Kara Bassett was at the park, and then the swamp, and then the airport. The event data recorder in the van, which measures graphical location based on orbital satellite signal, also reveals this to us. From 11:17 p.m. to 1:26 in the morning, she drove to Big Gum Swamp. From 1:26 a.m. to 2:10 a.m., she stayed stationary at the swamp, where she disposed of Don Clark's body, plunging him into the depths of the swamp. From 2:10 a.m. to 4:29 a.m., she drove from Big Gum Swamp to the Carrie Bell Leon Airport, where she left the van. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the data is clear from the orbital satellites in space down to the minuscule molecule atomic structures of the phytoplankton. Kara Bassett executed. But many of you might have one question remaining. How do we know she was in those boots? We know the boots were at the park, and then inside of the van, and then at the swamp, and then at the airport. But how do we know she was in those boots? Well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Kara Bassett's hand-picked producer, Joe Young, told you that when he left the elephant park on August 18th of 2017, Don and Kara were the only ones left on the property. And we found the algae on Kara Bassett's boots. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the only person that could fit in Kara Bassett's boots was Kara Bassett. We know that the boots were at the swamp because the microscopic phytoplankton's Redfield ratio tells us this. The atomic structure tells us this. Atomic structure cannot be changed. It's unique, and it doesn't lie. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do not let Don Clark become just another statistic in your daily newspaper obituary. Don Clark had a life, but that life, as you saw today in the countless documents, the power of attorney, the FBI forensics reports, was taken away by Kara Bassett. She was the only one on the property with access to carfentanil. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, data doesn't lie. Algae atomic structure does not lie. Orbital satellite signal does not lie. Documents do not lie. Ladies and gentlemen, do not let Don Clark's life become just another statistic. You've seen too many statistics today. Find Kara Bassett guilty of murder. Thank you.
Closing from the defense, Your Honor.
Yeah, begin when you're ready, Mr. Wright.
Yes, Your Honor. The government's case cuts corners. It's August 25th. FBI agent Branham has just been notified of a missing persons report filed by my client, Kara Bassett. He arrives on scene suspicious. He arrives on scene already wanting to cut corners. For the next year, Agent Branham sees only what he wants to. For the next year, Agent Branham searches every single day for countless hours looking for anything that could be connecting Kara Bassett to murdering Don Clark. Meanwhile, Don Clark has completely disappeared. His phone, his wallet, his keys, they're all gone. He's completely vanished. And the government? Well, they didn't even bother to go looking for him. You see, members of the jury, today you're going to have to ask yourselves, has the government actually proven that Don Clark is dead? Or could Don Clark be in Costa Rica right now, as we speak? See, the reason it's impossible for the government to meet their burden in this case is because even after presenting all of their witnesses, giving all of their evidence, they failed to prove to you that Don Clark is even deceased, let alone that he was murdered. But the government, they saw only what they wanted to. So I want to take you through what you heard today and show you exactly how the prosecution has failed to meet their burden. Let's start with whether or not a murder ever even took place. Now today, the government, they got up here time and time again trying to convince you that forensic evidence links Kara Bassett to the Big Gum Swamp. But members of the jury, when the prosecution's Agent Branham got on the stand, what did he testify about analyzing the forensic data? He said that he never compared the algae present at the swamp with the water sources at the elephant park. Think about that, members of the jury. The government has rested their case on this forensic data, but they never even tested the one place that Kara Bassett lives and works every single day of her life. That's reasonable doubt. Mr. Wright, can you get Exhibit 25 on the screen for us? That water source, that's at the elephant park. The government, they didn't even bother to look into the water sources at the elephant park. And not just that, every single puddle, every watering hole, everything. They chose not to look into that because they cut corners in their investigation. Let's talk about what the government couldn't find. In all their time searching the property and in all their time searching the Big Gum Swamp, they couldn't provide you with any signs of struggle, signs of blood, tissue, clothing, wallet, keys, phone, anything that links Don Clark to that swamp. The government, they've rested their case on some elephant tranquilizer being the cause of Don's death. Where is that syringe, members of the jury? Where is this syringe that is so pivotal in their case that they must bring it up time and time again? They never found that. Never looked into that, never found anything like that. Never showed it to you, never admitted it. That's because there wasn't anything like that. Agent Branham, he searched that park every day with trained dogs given Don scent, and he found nothing. No wheelchair tread patterns, nothing. That park, it's open recreationally, 24/7. It's open right now, members of the jury. It's been almost 3 years, and still, nothing. That is reasonable doubt. Let's talk about where Don could be. Places the prosecution's Agent Branham never chose to look into. You see, you heard today from Joe Young, someone who's been working with Kara Bassett and worked with Don Clark. What did Joe Young tell you about Don's connection to Costa Rica? She told you that Don, he has a background going to Costa Rica. Joe Young told you that she saw Don Clark on August 18th at 6 p.m. Gave you her eyewitness account. She said, he looked at his phone and his face just turned white. Members of the jury, we know what he was looking at. That phone call he had to make to someone in Costa Rica, those text messages he got from Costa Rica, the FBI didn't bother to look into any of that. Don Clark spoke for 52 minutes with this person. The FBI chose not to look in. Members of the jury, today the government, they haven't even come close to meeting their burden. proof beyond a reasonable doubt, they haven't even come close to that. We've given you the reasonable alternatives in this case. We ask that you find Kara Bassett not guilty. Thank you.
Rebuttal, Your Honor.
You may.
May I ask the timekeepers how much time I have remaining before beginning? May it please the court, Your Honor. Mr. Wright just came before you and did not dispute the documents and the data. Let's begin with those documents. The documents are clear. Kara Bassett forced Mandy Tuminelli, Don's attorney, to insert a never-before-seen clause. It was the only way she could achieve her life goal. She forced the attorney to insert that clause, ladies and gentlemen. She had the plan and she had the motive. Now let's talk about that data. Mr. Wright put on the screen a picture of the park. He put on a picture of a lake. But what he neglected, he omitted the truth from you, ladies and gentlemen. That picture was taken after the transformation of the park. That's not how the park looked. That was how the park is now, not what it was. Furthermore, Mr. Wright came before you and stated that we needed to test. We needed to test the park. We needed to test the grass, the rocks, everything at the park. But ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we didn't have to do that. The Redfield ratio, you heard from Agent Branham, the FBI forensics team. It's unique. It's a fingerprint. And they all had the same fingerprint. They all had the same atomic structure of 47, 31, 29. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, data doesn't lie. Algae atomic structure does not lie. Orbital satellite signals do not lie. Documents do not lie. Do not let Dawn Clark's life become just another statistic. Find Kara Bassett guilty of murder. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This terminates, this comes to the conclusion of our case. Judges, at this time, please complete your ballots and then click submit. I'll ask everyone to stay on until everyone has submitted their ballots. And then we will do brief comments for the judges. As soon as you submit your ballot, if you could please unmute your video, and I'll give the directions for the comments. That way